Hello, welcome. I see some returning project judges and I believe some new. We'll wait a few seconds to see if anyone else is joining. Okay, I guess we'll start. I'm Jess. I've been doing this for a while. Do we have any first-time judges in this? Okay, Jerome. Perfect. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. The joys of technology. Sorry. 1 second. Okay. Well, I get this sorted. Okay, so I guess my technology is not going to let me share my screen, but we're gonna make it work because that's what we do. So basically, with the innovation project, we get a problem for the teams each year, and the teams come up with a solution for the problem. This year, first gave us the statement of all around us, there are opportunities to play and be active. From open parks to cement courts, in our classrooms, and even when we're waiting in line. But more and more people are not active enough. Playing makes being active more fun. You get creative when you want to play, and it's this creativity that can help motivate us to be more active. So teams have to, and I'm gonna put the question in the chat. Okay. Alt share. Still not letting me share, but if you, here is the project. So it starts here. So teams get that, and they have to come identify a specific problem linked to people not being active enough, and then research the problem and your solution ideas. So for this, the teams have to come up with a problem to do with being active. And then they have to research the problem to see if there are solutions for this idea. And then from there, they have to come up with a new solution, and they have to design a new piece of technology or improve an existing one. And then they have to share a solution, collect feedback, and iterate on the design. And then they come to us for the project judging and pitch the solution. And they will come up with a 5-minute presentation that clearly explains their work. And we want them to make sure that their whole team is involved in this. With this activity, we are judging them based on going through the whole design process, and I will share the prep pack from High Tech Kids in the chat. My screen is not working. If anybody else wants to try sharing their screen with that, they can. Otherwise, you can, yes.
See if I can get it.
Thank you, Cheryl. Is that Cheryl? The love of technology right now. I'm so sorry for it not working. Thank you, Rachel.
No problem.
Um, so we have the first part of this is the team identifies a problem, and they have to clearly identify the problem that and prove that it was well researched. So a beginning team would not really have a problem that's clearly defined. So they might come into judging and say, we studied being active, and they don't fully explain what is going on, or they haven't done a lot of research on the problem. Developing is there's kind of a little bit of a clear definition of the problem, but some of the research or quality can be unclear. A lot of times when we are in judging, sometimes you'll have a team that you'll ask a question of, where did you find this information? And they look at you and go, on the internet. Um, the quality of that might not be incredibly clear. Accomplished is a fully clear definition of the problem, and they have a wide variety of quality research. And exceeding, once again, you will be putting in a little comment if you feel like they are exceeding on that. It could be that you feel like they have determined the problem exactly with lots of research, and maybe they've documented and identified that research successfully. Um, Design, the team generated innovative ideas independently before selecting and planning which one they would develop. Teams are expected to come up with multiple ideas throughout the season for their problem. If a team comes in and goes, I only thought of one idea and that's the one that I stuck with, they're probably in the beginning or developing phase. They are expected to do some planning and include all team members in their planning. We, in theory, we would like them to document and be able to show us this process and what they've gone through during the season. Then our next one is create. Team developed an original idea or built on an existing one with a prototype model drawing to represent their solution. We want teams to show their design. So it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult this year with Zoom, especially with the technology. If they are coming up with a model, especially if teams aren't meeting in person, but we would like to see some kind of documentation and invention type proof. And we want them to develop that solution. And at their first tournament of the year, it might not fully be developed, but especially by the time we get to the state championship level, we expect a little bit more out of teams. Then iterate. Teams shared their ideas, collected feedback, and include improvements in their solution. We want teams to share their ideas. This might be sharing them with professionals and getting feedback on things with a personal trainer or somebody who might work in being active, or you might share it with the parents or kids at schools. We want them to improve their solution and share their ideas. And then communicate. The team shared a creative and effective presentation of their current solution and its impacts on their users. Teams should be keeping you engaged and interested in answering potential questions throughout their presentation. They're 5 minutes. You want them to be engaged throughout and have a clear impact. And you hope that by the end of their presentation, they've clearly explained their presentation and their solution and idea. For feedback, you can give feedback in the exceeds selection, like Jeannie said earlier, and feedback comments in the bottom. We recommend doing a feedback sandwich. So we want a good comment, something that they can improve on, and end on something good. So for a good comment, you could say, great job on your presentation. You stayed engaged throughout the whole time. And for a think about sharing your solution with more people or professionals. I'd recommend just learning what works best for you based on the questions. You will find that a lot of teams struggle with the same things. A lot of teams at the beginning of the season don't clearly define their problem, or they haven't thought out fully their solution. But make sure that you keep everything positive and have things that students can improve upon. We want this to be a positive experience for the students, so we really want to help them improve. Any questions or anything that anybody else would like to add?
Are we going to be giving any additional consideration for folks who have a difficult time sharing with experts and people this year? Just given the circumstances, as you know, I can imagine some teams, depending on where they're located and what kind of support structure they have, aren't going to have a really easy time doing that.
That is a great question. High Tech Kids hasn't completely told us about how we will handle that, but we recommend for students and teams that they can reach out virtually. High Tech Kids does have a professional virtual panel, I believe, that they've done in the past, and I believe that they're doing it this year, where teams can join and share their ideas with professionals. So there are opportunities. How I like to look at it, and I'm not sure if other people do too, every tournament is different. So when you get to the tournament and start judging, you might learn that a lot of teams that you might have put at a lower base end up being a higher quality team compared to the other ones. So you are judging based on the teams for the day. And you should be judging them based on teams in general. So it's not the end of the world if all the teams end up with developing or beginning, because we want them to improve throughout the season. And if we stack everything at exceeds or accomplished, they're going to get to their next tournament and wonder, wait, I got all positive remarks and I don't know what I'm supposed to improve on. So we want to make sure that they know how to improve.
Jess, that's a great answer. I think when first updated the rubrics here, there is the one on iterate on, sharing their solution. And there was a little bit, I think, an emphasis change from sharing it with lots of experts, moving towards what did you change based on improvements that were suggested. So even if they didn't get a lot of experts, but they shared it with a teacher or a principal, and then that person suggested different things, I think that would qualify them to being sharing. I think that's always been an issue, that equity issue, that it's often very difficult for teams that perhaps have teacher coaches that sometimes parents have a lot of connections. If they're coaching the team, they're like, oh, my friends does that area and we'll connect you with them. And sometimes it doesn't feel as equitable. The other thing I'll mention that we don't have this year participation by Minneapolis Public Schools and St. Paul Public Schools, although we do have a handful of teams that have formed that might be kids that attend those schools. So like, I think some of our Lake Harriet teams are participating. And those of you who have judged in the past know sometimes those kids are just as smart, but they don't often have as much time as the teams that are basement teams or teams that start in August. These teams often didn't get started till October. We're holding out a little bit of hope that maybe if COVID improves, maybe they'd start, if the schools go back to hybrid, that maybe they would start teams in January, might have a spring event. But for right now, the assumption is that they're not participating this year.
Any other questions or things that people want to discuss about the project this year? First keeps the question very ambiguous each year with very little guidance. So a lot of it is interpretation of the question, and that's what teams are doing, and that's what we're judging them on.
Do we have an example of what a finished rubric is going to look like? And I ask because we're seeing the equivalent of a paper version, but in the end, it's going to be a digitized version. Do we know what that, like a completed one, is going to look like? And the reason why I'm asking is because like we do 1, 2, 3. So does that like check in the box for beginning? And then if we make comments, does that automatically check the exceed box? I'm just wondering how it converts digitally.
As I understand it, like let's say you score the developing, you give them a 5, it'll just check the box under developing. And then if you give them a 10, 11, 12, it'll just check the box in exceeds. And I know I've seen that version of it. It looks like that. What I'm not sure about is if you write a lot, if the lines move down. I haven't seen that formatting, but it should look like this, what the teams get given back.
Okay.
Your form looks a little bit different when you are moving the scroll bars over, but it should convert it to this. I think we've got most of the people that I recognize your names, and I think you've either judged before or you've been a coach before. So the thing that I feel is different, and Jess and anybody else can pipe in. The question's a little bit weird this year because normally they have to identify a challenge in a certain area and then something to fix that challenge. But as I understand it, the challenge is to identify a specific problem to not being active enough. So I think the teams should be, saying, okay, if you aren't active enough, you might be at a high risk of diabetes, for example, or some sort of medical issue, or could be even mental health. But then the solution that they're coming up with is actually trying to get people to be more active, which isn't necessarily related to the problem. And I don't know if I feel like this has been different than in past research questions. Because I feel like the kids are going to do research on maybe, what lack of exercise causes, but then their solution is going to be more on how do we design fitness equipment, or maybe a park more accessible, or does anybody else kind of see that's kind of almost two different things in some respects? The other thing that I might emphasize now with you guys, and I'm going to let you guys determine how to judge, but in the past, teams could come up with a process or a law to change. Like when we did the recycling, a lot of teams lobbied their city councils for, maybe doing trash recycling or recycling at parks or something. And this year they really want a technology solution, which can be a thing like a park equipment or, but they're looking for a thing, not necessarily a process or a law. And that's maybe a little bit different than in past years. And they're supposed to have a prototype, but it could be a drawing. They don't have to come up with the app, but they have to have the idea for the app.
I think it will be interesting to see how teams will come up with a prototype, especially showing them via Zoom or Discord. Because someone made the comment earlier that outstate teams have the video tanks when you're using, or the video tanks the internet. So I know not all teams will be able to successfully show their prototype, so it will be interesting to see what happens with that. But it is a learning experience for all of us. We're using new technology, just like I couldn't get my screen to share right now. We're gonna have to learn all together and bear with it.
I agree. Video back on. Okay, everybody looks baffled.
Well, I'm just thinking that, like, I expect to see, for lack of a better term, campaigns for the solution, like whether it be a social media campaign or a school campaign, but this is our plan to get people to do more movement type of thing. And so it's, if you add in the social media aspect, I see the technology, but I don't know, like I said, I haven't talked to any teams this year, but I'm just, based on the types of solutions I've seen in the past, I think that that's going to be a common thing.
Yeah, Vicki was on the committee to improve this, and one of the things she really fought heavily for, they really wanted a prototype, something physical, and we kind of thought it was an equity issue for our poor teams. Like, they can have a drawing, they might not have Lego bricks to build something to symbolize it, or even clay or whatever. We just can't assume. Hopefully everybody can make a drawing. That sometimes make things clearer, but this isn't one of my favorite topics this year. It's just a little bit harder. And Jess, you did mention we did have a research panel. I had a physical trainer. I had someone that has made apps for physical therapy, and then my brother actually is a landscape architect and does a lot of park design. So I dragged him into. So they're willing to be a resource too if people wanted to. And that was taped. It was free to attend it, and people can watch it now. We're going to probably have it on our website tomorrow. So there are some experts out there, but it is going to be a little bit of a challenge. And even this year for COVID, I mean, parks were closed down at the very beginning of this year, and there might be still some families that saying, yeah, we're not going to be going to public places this year. So maybe exercise at home will be a new theme.
And I know in the past, go on.
Well, I got good feedback about your panel on Saturday from some of our
did they?
People, yeah, some of our kids who attended. So
okay. Oh, good, thank you.
And I've known in the past sometimes we've had judges who have had expertise in certain areas reach out to teams and offer help with their projects when that is what they've done for work and stuff like that. If you do end up knowing anything about staying active, feel free to let the teams know that they can use you as a resource. They might think it's awkward if you end up in the judging room. I've seen that with people before, that they'll call you out by name as one of their professional connections, but it does work. We're trying to help all of these teams, and we want to be good resources for them.
I do think if you guys are pretty our seasoned crew here, you may, if we have some new folks, we'll probably be pairing you with someone so they won't be on their own for the first time. I think she mentioned that before, but we don't do that ever, just to throw somebody in. So, and then there will be rooms for you guys to go and talk. If you just need to get away from the teams during your breaks, you can go over there and just kind of chat with the other judges for, often I think if there's just one of you, and those of you who've done this a lot, it's maybe easier to come to determinations because you can just flip through those rubrics pretty fast. But if we have some new people, it helps us all in the end. The more new people we get, because then we have more flexibility in scheduling.
Are we expecting more 2 people judging or 1 person judging?
I think we're going to have more 1 person judging, frankly. We have had a few volunteers say, I hate Zoom, I'm out. Like, I don't want to do this video thing. So we've had a few people back out on us. They said they'll be back, but that's always a bummer for us because of some of our seasoned people. We only have 5 events. There's only 5 qualifiers and then a state tournament. So I am hoping, you know, if someone says they want it and we could get 2, that's good, because we're going to be learning. There's a lot of things we're learning. We're learning John's new software. We're all learning Discord. So then when you guys are done with the season, you could be gamers too on Discord, playing your Halo or whatever you want to do. But so we're all learning new skills. And if there's another person, sometimes it makes us all feel a little bit, you know, if your webcam goes or your sound goes or something, there's another person to talk to. So, but I'm anticipating it might just be 1. And right now we are having a lot more FTC events. We have like 7 of them. So our need on that side is pretty strong for volunteers. So if we get anybody new, we might kind of direct them over that way because Norm has a lot to schedule. Okay. Jenny's got to take off. So
I'd also recommend if you have dual monitors or multiple screens, that will be very, very helpful this year. For
I'm
having
thinking 2 computers. Have the Zoom on my computer, but then have the tablet like we've always had as my actual calculation for the scores, to have like a little iPad or something.
that might be helpful.
And then
Yeah.
it might also be useful this year. I'm not sure how teams will want to do it, or you will want to do it with tracking the 5 minutes for the presentation. If you want to have it on your phone, potentially maybe instead of your video, having that as your video, sharing your screen with the timer. I'm not sure how people want to do it, or if you want to just have it next to you. I think it's going to be a little bit easier compared to past years because we're going to hopefully have a few different screens or more technology to look at.
Yeah, we had a couple teams back out because they said, we can't do any video streaming, so we're not doing it. And I was like, oh, dang, could you just have the kids talk? But he was like, we're having so many problems with online events that they were out. And I know, I don't think Jenna's not in this group, but she was saying like, even up near Duluth area, the videos, it's just really difficult in most places to do that. Okay, I'll wrap up. Okay.
I know even in Maple Grove, there's issues with that.
I have loads of kids who have unstable internet connections in the suburbs, so.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jenny was going to sign up, but I see she's still here. Okay. And if you guys think of other questions, you can email Jess, you can email Barb. There may be something that we haven't thought about yet that we're having to figure out. I will tell you that it's been a little confusing only because we were kind of waiting for the remote hub from first. Now that that's not available, we've had to kind of think of things on our own. So John's software has got the scoring thing really sorted out. And he's had it, the software's been around for quite a while, so it's pretty debugged. There may be some little things with it, but we may be able to go paperless next year. So this is all good.
I read through the prep pack and there was like very specific questions to ask for each segment of the rubric. Do we have to stick to that, or are we still given our freedom to kind of ask what we want, especially based on what we see?
I think you should ask the questions you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it should be your words, and because sometimes, you all know this, sometimes you ask the question in such a way that you're not getting the answer you need back. And that sometimes you discover that after you've asked it 10 times, you're like, yeah, the kids keep going this way and I really need to go that way. So I think it's helpful if you're new and you've never done it before, you might need some questions to get started.
Yeah.
But you guys are all pretty experienced. So, well,
I
thank you
know.
for doing this. And thank you, Jess, for leading the session on it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I know that I'm for sure going to have a Word document where I start keeping all of my basic feedback and copying and pasting probably a lot of similar things throughout the season. So maybe that might be a good thing at your first tournament of the year. Look at your feedback and start coming up with questions and comments, because it's going to save us a lot of time by being able to type them up.
Cheryl, this is Jenny. Do we still have
Oh, you're still here.
the cheat sheets? I know, I'm sorry. I told you I was splitting, but I'm half listening, half working. Do we still have the cheat sheets, the big 11 by 14 ones that we had that had questions on them and suggested comments?
I don't think they've been, since the rubric training, I don't think they've been updated, but
Okay.
I can check with Barb and Jeannie. That's a
I
good
would
question.
think that the comments part of it at least might still be
Yes.
applicable, and we could just copy and paste off that if
Yes,
possible.
on the big sheets.
I think whenever
that.
you're ready, unless anyone else
I
has...
think they're gonna send us all back. We're just gonna
Oh,
immediately,
perfect.
I think, or do we have to say remove ourselves?
If we are doing the leave room, you click leave room and then click leave breakout room. Do not click leave meeting. Click
Okay.
leave
All right,
breakout
we'll
room.
we'll go back to the big place then.
Okay. See you all on the other side.